So this was a really interesting and quite extensive fault find we were on here. The customer had asked us to come in after 2 other electricians had already been in and had a brief look at this and couldn't get anywhere, and they're at the point where they're running extension leads from all different rooms because an awful lot of power and various sockets throughout the house had stopped working. We started with all our usual fault finding techniques, running continuity between end to ends of cables and doing insulation tests, locating all the dead legs of the cable, and there was quite a few of them, but it was also apparent this wasn't a normally wired circuit as well. There was end of lines and things everywhere. Everywhere we tested we were getting a dead leg somewhere, and I think it turns out it was a radial that ended up teeing off into 2 or 3 separate areas, and this was the cable that was at fault. We spent about a day looking for this, but then decided we got to a point where it made more sense to start rectifying rather than continue to chase down this cable, because it meant we'd have had to have lifted up every floor and started tracking down physically where this cable went. We'd already located 2 or 3 separate faults and cut cables and things that actually would have fixed one item, but it seemed there was about 5 or 6 different faults on this circuit. Normally we're really determined to find the root cause of the problem, but to be honest, in these situations it's best and most cost effective for the customer to sort of call a halt at this point and start looking at rectification, because it's probably going to be cheaper. So in this instance, that's what we did. We found all the good legs of cable we could and then run a new radial circuit from that to round the house basically to the back of all these points, so we could reinstate various parts of the circuit. By doing that, it meant that we could get pretty much every existing socket back on again just by running some cables externally and causing minimal impact internally. We planned it in a way that required the minimum cable around the outside, but it could reinstate the sockets, but then would allow all the good legs of cable internally to continue to feed all the existing sockets too. But it worked really effectively. There was no damage internally, and it meant that we could get all the sockets back on again, which the customer was really happy about. It's one of those rare occasions where you don't physically find the root cause of the cable problem, but to be honest, in this situation it makes more sense to swap to try and do a rectification now, and again, like I said, it saves customers money, which makes more sense in the long run. So there we have it, problem solved and another rectification done. Let us know if you'd have done things differently and follow us for more.